What's up, everybody? Ask Coach Ben podcast on Jiu-Jitsu Magazine Podcast Network, brought to you by Muscle Farm, Lactigo. I'm here with Jim Lawson from Jiu-Jitsu Magazine. Jim, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Ben. Thank you very much. So I wanted to talk about something that you as an academy owner, I'm sure you have experience with, and then I used to run my own academy as well. But as a matter of fact, this is a bit broader than just for academy owners. You could actually be a participant, a practitioner, and I want to talk about changing academies.
Right.
And what is the protocol? How should someone approach the idea of changing academies for whatever reason?
That's a pretty common question. So I've had experience on both sides. As a student, I've changed academies before, and as a current gym owner, I've owned my gym now for 5 years. I've had students change academies, and I have both perspectives. Right, I have the perspective from the student and also the owner of the gym as well. And you're similar, right? You've had experience in that as well, both as a student and you've owned your own gym. So the first thing, let's take a step back real quick and just kind of define a few things, right? So the first thing when you're changing an academy, there are we'll get to things that you can't control a little later, right? Like if you're moving or if their academy shut down or something, that's different. It's different, right? But first, I think when you're changing academies, you need to define your own goals, right? So your own goals as a jiu-jitsu student, jiu-jitsu practitioner, what it is that you're looking for, right? So if I'm a competitor, right, versus if I'm not a competitor, versus if I'm learning jiu-jitsu purely for self-defense, and I have my own opinions on self-defense. But I think if we start with just those three groupings, we can kind of systematize or kind of put people in different buckets where they need to go, right? So most people will not be competitors, right? But let's just take care of that first. Let's say your goals are to compete and you want to win the big tournaments, that you want to be invited to the big shows. You want to compete, right? You want to be an active competitor, whether it's full-time or part-time. You would like to train at the highest level or compete at the highest level, right? So my thoughts on that are most competitors, they need to go to an academy in which there are high-level training partners, right? Most competitors that I know that are at the highest level, they usually train during the day. So there's like a competition class during the day, and then at night they either teach private lessons, they teach group classes, or they lift weights, and they just do other things. And again, that's just my experience. I'm sure there are high-level competitors that train in the evening too, but in our area, I'm pretty friendly with most of the competition teams here. That's usually how most of them do it. Train during the day, teach, rest, lift weights at night. So if you're picking a gym, you need to pick a gym that obviously has the ability to compete, right? So if you want to compete in IBJJF competitions, but your school is not registered with the IBJJF, that should eliminate that academy right off the bat, right?
That's a great point, yeah.
Right. If you want to win the IBJJF No-Gi Worlds, but your academy is not registered with the IBJJF, you can't compete in the No-Gi Worlds, right? And that's a problem. So I would weed that out immediately. Okay, if your goal and what the academy is capable of have a conflict, you can't pick that academy. Okay, so that's why, as an academy owner, I'm very big on just playing the game. Right, IBJJF has a lot of detractors and all that, but you know what? My academy is registered. I'm an IBJJF certified black belt. I play the game because I do respect the IBJJF. I think that they put a system in front of everybody, and it governs it's governance. I think it's important. Okay, so right then and there we can weed out a few choices if you are a competitor, right? Like I said, you need to have high-level training partners. You need to have a coach, right? So if you want to compete at a high level and there's nobody at this academy that is even willing to coach you, and you're going to have to do it alone, are you going to be okay with starting that competition team at this new academy? What is the next plan, right? So again, if you want to be a competitor, your choices are kind of narrowed a little bit, right? If you want to compete at a high level anyway. Okay, so if that's the goal, there's those are the things you need to take into account for.
So step one is identify your goals.
Right. Most people won't be competitor, right? Most people will be non-competitor, and they just want to train for fun.
Yeah, like
right?
recreational, executive training and all that stuff.
Yeah. So most people will fall into that second bucket, right? You're non-competitor. You just want to train for fun, for fitness, for health. You want to learn. You do want to get better. But and I think those people, their goal, and you could probably put me and you in this category too. We're not really competitors anymore. And the main thing though is if you're not a competitor, my opinion is that you should still go to a gym in which the people in the academy are looking to get better at jiu-jitsu under the current jiu-jitsu meta game, right? So if you're looking for an academy and they're teaching, kind of antiquated stuff, that it might not be the place that you want to go if your goal is to be up to date with the current jiu-jitsu metagame and continue on learning jiu-jitsu and being on top of things, right? So my recommendation for those people is to find a gym where maybe they don't have a heavy competition team, but they do have an emphasis on following jiu-jitsu competition, or at least the instructor is up to date, right? So I would say if you're not a competitor, my recommendation is to go to an academy that still has people there who would like to roll or spar at a world-class level. Maybe you don't want to be a world-class competitor, but you should be able to hang with world-class competitors in the training room, right? So I think that's my opinion on that. And then the third bucket would be like your goal is really just, you don't really care much about anything except self-defense, right? You just kind of want to do self-defense. And there's two things here, and this is where I want you to chime in, Jim. My opinion of self-defense is kind of I wouldn't say it's a unique one, but it's a personal opinion, and it's that I generally don't like to teach self-defense because I feel that jiu-jitsu in and of itself is self-defense, right? You are training resilience to people putting a lot of pressure on you. You're training discomfort to proximity, right? So to me, a high-level guy in the training room or in competition can easily defend themselves against anything, right? And now people will say, "Oh, well, there's weapons and things. There's guns and knives." No self-defense is going to save you from that. Okay, you should have ran. You should have preemptively disarmed that. If you're going to think any self-defense is going to protect you against a gun or a knife, yeah, simulate it a couple times and tell me how that goes. It's. So my opinion of self-defense is just that, just pick a good gym where there's tough training partners and you're constantly getting better at jiu-jitsu, right? And I've been criticized for this opinion. I've said, like, my example in basketball would be like LeBron James, right? LeBron James doesn't play basketball to, beat me at the park. He doesn't care about me. I'm a guy. He's worried about beating the best basketball players in the world, and as a byproduct of that, he could easily beat me at basketball, right? We're not even talking about that, right? So yeah, if you aim to be good at jiu-jitsu against other jiu-jitsu practitioners, do you really think that your ability to defend yourself against a random street thug is gonna you're gonna have a problem with that person? I don't think so. What's your opinion on that, Jim?
Yes, that's a great point, and this can go many layers. It's definitely a 4D chess scenario because I do disagree with you. I feel that jiu-jitsu. I mean, I agree with you on so many levels of what you just said, but my skew is a little different because I look at self-defense as something that goes beyond the wrist locks, arm bars, strangles, chokes. It goes beyond that, and to manage a high stress situation that doesn't involve the physical techniques, but the stages of violence.
Now we're talking about kind of like psychology too.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I believe that jiu-jitsu does have a role in that. It does have roots. I do agree with you on the technical aspects, the mechanics of once you learn all those techniques, yeah, you're going to be fine. you're going to be fine in a street altercation if it does get physical and all that stuff. But I think there's so much value if you go to a self-defense oriented academy. I think I believe self-defense is more than just the techniques, but it's situation awareness and when to use those techniques, when not to use those techniques, as opposed to the man-on-man, mano-a-mano scenario. So there's so many layers to that. But so back to the competition side, when I trained and when I competed, in fact, Rodrigo, our former professor, former professor.
I consider him my professor.
Yeah, still professor. He used to get on me all the time about not knowing the rules. And one of the mandates he gave me before he gave me a black belt is I had to get certified as a referee.
Oh, the rules of the competition?
IBJJF,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Interesting. Okay.
Because we'd be sparring. Jimbo, you gave up 2 points. You gave up, so I like to compete at that time, so he wanted to make sure I was there. So, but my mentality, the way I approach training, the way I approach competition is have solid fundamentals. The stuff that you would use in the street, get so good at it that it'll carry over into competition. And it did. It served me well on a certain level. And then you look at someone like a Kron Gracie. His style is very basic and very, not to say that he's basic, but it's very fundamentally based, his style. And once you get so good at the fundamentals, you could elevate it to, I believe, a high competitive level, a la Roger Gracie. Right.
I think you're absolutely right, Jim. And when you say, when you think of self-defense in that way, I agree with you too.
Right.
I was more referring to self-defense in the sense of specific techniques. You know, like the knife is coming in like this, and you block like this. And I don't put a whole lot of value in that. But if you're talking about situational awareness, okay, now we're talking about something else. Now we're talking about curriculum. This is a different thing. So,
and these are the considerations that we're talking about.
For sure. And so if you're looking for just self-defense, right? Let's say if you don't really care too much about getting better in the training room, you just want to be able to defend yourself, right? I mean, I would just say there are jiu-jitsu academies that do specialize in that, right? Like Gracie,
like Gracie Gracie University.
I think those types of places, you have to be more a part of that Elio Gracie lineage, right? So I am more of a Carlos guy. So I'm more on the sports side.
Sure.
And so and it's just there's no one's better than the other or anything, but there's a difference.
Yeah, right? And there are considerations because let's say we're talking about the competitive realm. Now, where does MMA fit in that?
Right.
So it's like you want to specialize in MMA specific grappling. So these are very important considerations to if you're changing I mean, and remember, we're talking about changing academies.
We don't want to get too broad,
right?
But the main buckets I think are competitor, non-competitor, self-defense, and then if you want to do MMA. I would probably say that's something that we can discuss later because that's like another realm. Now we're using jiu-jitsu for something else. We're just saying jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu right now, right? So once you've defined your goals, then you can kind of at least narrow down the academies in which you're going to pick, and then it'll give you a better and more informed decision, right? I always tell people. When they come to my academy and they want to sign up, right? This is not good business advice, by the way. But I always tell them, hey, look, my academy is one of like 4 in the area. Like, if you're not sure, why don't you try every academy and then come back and let me know. If you choose me, then great, I'll see you again. If not, there's no hard feelings. It just wasn't the right fit. And I feel like that's the most honest way to do business. It's almost a little too transparent, probably, but that's how I do it. And so we'll get to kind of how you pick later. But let's actually, let's just talk about that now. So like when you let's say you want to change an academy, right? How should you go about going into a new academy? Right. I would say this is how I would do it. Right. I would go to the academy and I would say. Hey, look, I'm changing academies or I'm just starting jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, either way, it's be honest, whatever your intention is. And I just like to try out a week. I want to try out a week. I want to get the vibe, whatever it costs for a week, I'll pay that, get the vibe of the academy down. And if you would allow me to do that, after a week, I'm going to maybe try another academy, and then I'm going to make a final decision after 3 weeks, 2 weeks, something like that. Right then and there, I feel like you could weed out some red flags, right? Because I would not have any issue with that at my academy. If you came in and you said that, you said, I want to do a week, I wouldn't even charge you for the week, to be honest. I just be like, okay, whatever, as long as you have a gi, right? I can't give you a free gi, but if you have a gi, you want to rent the gi for a week, fine, okay, no big deal. If any business owner or instructor doesn't let you do that and just says, nope, you have to sign up for a month and it's a year contract and I won't let you leave until you do, that's a red flag. Okay, why do you need to be such a pushy salesman if your academy's doing well and you're an ethical businessman? Why would you need to do that, right? Another red flag would be like, if they said yes, but then they pressure you into signing up, or they badger you over the phone or something like that. They become very pushy, and I think that's a red flag. People that are aggressively going after sales in martial arts, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but that's not my style, and I personally wouldn't want to go to an academy that does something like that. What do you think about that, Jim?
No, I think that those are all very good assessments on a decision-making process.
As soon as you walk in the door, you can ask that question. If they say, no, we don't do that, well, then you cross that academy off the list. That's my opinion on it. And of course, there are academies that are maybe outliers, right? Like if you go to like Marcelo Garcia's academy, right? He might have strict rules there. But so again, we're not talking about like ultra famous academies that have like 20 visitors a day. We're talking about just your local place that maybe is just a local gym, a jiu-jitsu academy, regular jiu-jitsu like mine, okay? or my competitor down the street. They're all just a local place. So that's how I would approach the new place, right? The new place, and we're gonna talk now about what should you look for, right, in there. Let's say you're in the gym and you're on that week trial. What are you looking for?
Well, let's back up a step.
Sure.
And I think like the subtitle of this episode should be how not to be a creonch.
Oh yeah.
How not to be a creonch, because explain real quick what a creonch is. And before we're shopping for new academies, how do we leave the academy we're already attached to?
Okay, perfect. I was going to get to that next, but we can do that now.
Okay.
I think it's better now. You're right. So yes, a creonch is basically, there's like a story about, I think he was a character on a Brazilian TV show. I think it was Carlson Gracie was the person that coined this term, and it basically means a traitor. It's a person that leaves their team to go to another team. Okay. For the most part, I think most intelligent people in this day and age, they don't really subscribe to that style.
It doesn't mean it's not. I think it's not as strict today as it was, in the pioneer days.
First of all, information. We have the Library of Alexandria in our hands now, on our phones, right? What secret information do you have? I understand back in the day, Carlson's day, maybe he was a big competitor, right? And so he had to stay ahead of the technology, jiu-jitsu technology. And he didn't want other teams to kind of get his secrets that he was doing because he was trying to win. It's a competition to zero-sum game.
And that's still relevant.
Still relevant.
Still relevant today.
But at the same time, this term has now been kind of used as an umbrella term to kind of scare people out of paying customers, people who pay good money to train with you, out of leaving your academy because you think you have some kind of control over them. It's not about that, right? If I'm paying you money and I'm a student, there's no like loyalty that, I mean there is, but at the same time, if you're not providing the service and I tell you, look, Jim, you're not providing the service I want, I'm going to take my money and go elsewhere. If you have a problem with that, that's on you. That's not on me. That obviously there are situations where, you know, you've taken an exorbitant amount of time and put me under your wing, and then there's you can see things both ways, but for the most part, that term crianche is assigned to people who leave academies, and I think most of the time it's not fair. It's not fair. It's just a way of somebody protecting their ego and just saying, well, he's leaving because he's a traitor. Instead, maybe you should think about, well, they're leaving because you're not doing your job as an instructor, or you are doing something wrong or weird. So
I would like to add, because you touched on it, and I would say there's, in my opinion, humble opinion, is that when it comes to things like this, there's no real hard line. I mean,
Yes.
there are a
It's
few
not black
hard
and white.
lines. Yeah, right. It's a very human situation.
Yes.
Because on some scenarios there is a hard line.
Oh, yeah.
When you know, you start, you know, sniping, you know, talent, or when you go into the intent of some of the fellow team members or students.
let's just define it. You know, let's say I have a student and I've got this student to brown belt, and then the day I promote him to black belt, he opens his own academy down the street and poaches half my academy. That's a crianche. That's a crianche.
Right.
Okay? We're talking some, you know, you can label
there's
that.
your hard line.
Yeah, there's your hard line. Okay.
Yeah.
But even that, you know, there's just, maybe I did something wrong. I did something unethical.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? You know, so at the end of the day, the point is that's what it means. Crianche means traitor.
Right. And I do, going back to the human thing, and at the same time, for people who are part of an academy right now, and I think a lot of instructors, you touched on it, the ego situation. What a practitioner, what a white belt, blue belt, whatever belt you are, needs to remember, you're the paying customer.
Yes.
Nothing changes. You are the paying customer. So I would just throw it out there. Don't allow some higher rank to bully you into making you feel or believe that you cannot go anywhere else. That's just wrong. Because at the end of the day, the white belt, blue belt, purple, whatever, is the paying customer.
Yeah.
It's your hard-earned money paying to keep the lights on in that business. So always remember that.
100%.
You know, that's the message to practitioners
100%.
worldwide out there.
So we're at why would you leave, and kind of how to approach your instructor, right? So why would you leave your academy, right? Mainly people leave their academy for many reasons, right? But let's just get the easy ones out the way. Moving.
Well, your situation, you went off to school.
Yeah, I originally trained at Rodrigo, our former instructor, Rodrigo Teixeira's academy, and I was training there going to college. I was going to Cal Poly Pomona. And when I left Cal Poly Pomona, I moved back to LA, right? So Rodrigo's academy is not exactly that far, but it was far enough where it was a very inconvenient drive for me. So I told Rodrigo, I said, Rodrigo, I'm moving. I'm going to be training with Professor Sean Williams in downtown LA, and that's where I went. Then what happened was I had another situation where I basically didn't have a car anymore, so I had to take the bus to everywhere. And this is before like Uber or anything. I couldn't afford Uber anyway back then, but I'd take the bus. So then I moved to a Gracie Baja, and I told Professor Sean Williams, I have to move, I cannot drive to LA anymore. I was living about 20 minutes from LA. I was living in Pasadena. When I had a car, it was very easy to get to his academy. When I didn't have a car, I had to take the bus up the street to the local Gracie Baja, right? So that was that.
And how was that received when you had to move? On both occasions.
So Rodrigo understood completely. Sean, I don't think he ever got the message, to be honest. I sent him a message. I don't know he ever got it, but we're cool.
So it wasn't tough.
We're cool. I mean, I was a lowly blue belt at the time. He didn't really care, I don't think. But yeah,
But the message is you were transparent.
Yeah, I sent the message.
Intentions.
I don't, because later, a couple years later, when I ran into him, we talked. I was a black belt already at that time. I don't think he ever got the message. But so that was my mistake. Okay, that was my fault. I didn't wait for a response. I had to do what I had to do. It was a dire situation. So moving, right? Moving. Your instructor should have no problem with that. Okay, you're moving. Any of my students come to, I'm moving. Great. Let me find you a good academy. I try to help them find a better academy because I kind of can have an eye for these things, right? You look at their Facebook page or Instagram, you gotta tell, is this a good place to train, or maybe there's some things here, maybe, there's some red flags to see, So moving is never a problem. Now, there was later on in my jiu-jitsu career, there was a couple issues that came up that I think are a little more serious, right? Drama, right? Drama, toxic training room environment. These are things that if you don't feel comfortable in your training room, if there's drama, if there's unethical things happening, you got to leave, right? If you want to leave, leave. And so those are all reasons, right? Not getting what you're looking for, right? If you're trying to be a competitor and your academy is doing the same half guard sweep every day for the next 6 months, you're not learning anything. You're not getting what you're looking for. You got to leave, right? So there's other reasons to leave, and there's 1,000 reasons, right? Can you think of any other reasons on why you would leave an academy, Jim?
Yeah, the prices are too high at this particular academy, and I just got a pay cut or I got laid off.
Too expensive. Prices got raised somehow. Mm-hmm. New ownership, somebody takes over the gym and not your professor, and all of a sudden you have to deal with this guy and you don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. Style's not right. Many other reasons, right? Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If you're a paying customer, you should be able to do what you want to do given, most circumstances. There are, again, outliers that I want to make sure people understand, right? So how do you approach an instructor, right? So you're an instructor, you're a black belt. I'm an instructor, I'm a black belt. Mm-hmm. I've had many students approach me about changing academies. Not necessarily for, anything bad. It's just most of them are moving. And I did have one situation where one of my students decided to open up an academy that was close to mine, and some of my students wanted to train with this person. No hard feelings. It is what it is. I understand people are loyal to their friends. There's what can I do?
Or right? Their style of instruction.
Yeah.
Whatever the case.
Yeah, whatever it is. They're friendly. It is what it is, right? So how to approach? Just be honest. I think honesty is the key. Don't let your instructor, no matter who he or she is, talk you out of it with any BS. I would never be upset at a student for leaving my academy for any reason. The only, I guess, I'm trying to think of a way that I would be upset. Maybe if they got poached, or if they were tricked, or if things were said about me that were dishonest, and another academy kind of stole my talent away.
Yeah, I would say evaluating the intent.
Yeah,
it all comes down to intent. And if it's other than anything on the up and up,
And I wouldn't be mad at the student. I would be mad at the person who is doing this type of poaching or whatever. So anyway, there's not much you can say about how to approach an instructor. You just got to be honest. Just go straight up. Just tell them, I need to change academies. This is the reason. Maybe be a little nicer about it. If there was some drama involving the instructor, don't go right up to your instructor and say, this drama involving you, you're a bad person, I'm leaving. Just try to keep things cordial for as long as you can. Okay. So yeah, I guess the longest part of this podcast would be what you're going to look for in a new academy, right? So given that week trial, and even then, you should know after a couple months, I'd say, if the academy is what you're looking for. And if it's not, it shouldn't be that hard to get out of whatever contract you're in, right? If you're in a contract, again, this is not good business advice, but most of my students who need to pause, hold, leave, I just take them out of their contract. I don't necessarily hold them, say, you got to pay an exit fee of $500. I just implemented something recently where you have to give me like a 15 or 30, I don't know what it is. My front desk manager did it. like a 30-day notice or something for holds and cancellations, just so we can plan for next month, just so we can plan. It's not, and to be honest, I even override that. I've overridden that like 3 times already since he implemented it. Okay. So what do you want to look for in a new academy, right? So I have a few hard lines on what to look for. Okay. And you can chime in too, Jim, if you agree with, disagree. One is you have a black belt with a verified lineage. And you have to have a black belt that has played the game of jiu-jitsu and gotten their black belt. I don't really respect people who, let's say they're a purple belt or a brown belt and they're running academy and they're kind of a Ronin, right? Like you cannot verify who is your instructor. You are your instructor, but you're not even a black belt. You're purple belt or brown belt. Like what happened there? That usually doesn't end well. Those are usually people who have kind of splintered off, and I'm going to be honest, those are the type of people who will create issues in all academies. So IBJJF, right? We talked earlier about IBJJF. Yes, the process to getting an IBJJF certification, black belt certification, is difficult, and it's tedious, and a lot of people don't want to do it. I didn't want to do it, but I did it. Why? Because I wanted to play the game the right way. I wanted to have skin in the game. I wanted to invest into my lineage, and I wanted to make sure that people knew that I did things the proper way. Another reason is all black belts know this. If you're verified with the IBJJF, you're going to get 3 to 5 people per month messaging you about signing their paperwork, right? And so if you're at an academy that doesn't have an IBJJF, verification process or a lineage, you can't compete in the biggest tournaments in the world, which is IBJJF. And now they're not the only game in town. I understand there's a lot of people that circumvent the IBJJF by doing other things, no gi. But like, here's an example. We were at the World Championships a couple weeks ago, and I was there coaching my student, and obviously I could just go in on the floor and coach. But one of my friends, who's a 10th Planet black belt, Eric Ramey, he couldn't get in. He couldn't get in because why? Because 10th Planet generally, they don't play that game. They're not with the IBJJF. So it was a pain in the ass. He couldn't coach. He couldn't coach. We both kind of coach one student, and we couldn't coach her, or he couldn't coach her. So I had to coach her. And, he's the one that primarily works with her. I'm more of her manager. He's more of her actual coach. And he couldn't coach her, so I had to coach her. And this is a problem. So one of the things that I would look for in a new academy is not only a verified lineage, but somebody who can sign IBJJF paperwork. I think that is important. Maybe not to everybody, but it's important to me. What else? How to avoid McDojos and unethical people, right? So, when you go into a new academy, McDojos, if you're going to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy, it's pretty unlikely you're gonna walk into a full-on McDojo, like a straight up, chopping, air and flying into the right. the ground, right? However, I consider people who kind of don't keep up with the jiu-jitsu game, you could slowly descend into
irrelevancy.
Yeah, you could. Like if I'm teaching, just pull up the World Championships 1998, right? If I'm teaching a room of competitors and I'm teaching the stuff that they were doing in 1998 to this room of competitors, they're going to get slaughtered at the next tournament. Any non-local tournament, they're going to get slaughtered for sure. Why? Because information, technology, everybody knows what the most efficient things are, right? So this goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, right? Just keeping up with the current metagame, right? How can you tell? I wish I had an answer to that, right? But it's tough, it's tough. That's not an answer that I have. So we'll have to move on. But I always try to keep up with the current competitors and you know, watch the current competitions, just because I want my students to be up to date.
Well, to that point, I would kind of default back into the primary note, which is define your intentions.
Yes.
What do you want out of this new academy that you're going to? So we already talked about you know, leaving our academy and not being creentious, and then identifying a potential new academy, new home, so to speak. So yeah, define your intentions.
Yeah,
what do you want
and
out of it?
Of course, I want everybody to just know that I'm biased in a lot of this because these are just my opinions, right? And there's
it's the Coach Ben podcast.
Says Ask Coach Ben.
Here's Coach Ben's opinion.
Yeah.
Here we go. Strap in, boys and girls.
These are also things that you may not be able to know right away, but unprofessional instructors, you need to avoid that at all costs. Okay, people who ask for unpaid favors. You know, if I'm an instructor and I say, "Hey, Jim, you're my student. Paint this wall for me. Install these mats, and you're going to do it because you're my student." That's bullshit. That's complete bullshit. You know, there's why. Why would you do that? Like, what did I do for you? You know, I gave you some tape on your belt, and I showed you a couple moves that I also showed everybody else. But because you have a skill, I'm going to use your skill. Any academy that has that kind of crap going on, I don't respect. I don't have people teaching for me for free. Actually, I should take that back. I do have people that teach for me for free that refuse to be paid. I have two people, my judo instructor and one of my brown belts, refuse to be paid. They will not take it, right? So obviously I comp their membership. You know, I'm help them out as much as I can. But, yeah, they refuse to be paid. Everybody else is paid a fair wage, as much as I can pay them fairly without, you know, going into debt, basically. And that's it. You know, I don't do unpaid favors. You know, that's not cool to me, you know.
Yeah, and it goes back to, you know, again, the practitioner. So, you know, to the instructor who wants them to do all these things and this and that, it's like, wait, you're asking someone who pays you to do work for you.
Yes. I mean, it's insanity.
Right.
It's fucking insane.
Now, again, not to demonize the people that willingly, oh, yeah, let me do that for you.
Usually those people that are willing to do that, they're playing a game of their own. They're playing the game of, oh, if I do this for my instructor, well, he's going to give me a promotion next promote. You know, I'm going to be, and maybe that does happen. And now we're going down a road of McDojos for real. Now we're really watering things down.
If people are doing it for lessons, that's one thing. That, I mean, hey, I'm all for bartering.
Oh, like bartering's different.
If person A has a value that person B can use, and vice versa, they have things of equal value. So be it.
Here's an example that I think is fair. I have a student who is a contractor, and I need my gym to be painted. Right? We are bartering. He's not going to pay membership. I'm going to stack up what he would have paid, and that's going to be like the amount, and then he's going to tell me the amount of what it costs to paint my gym. I'm going to pay the difference.
Bartered.
We just bartered. Nothing wrong with bartering.
No.
Okay, that's not unethical.
Right.
Here's another one. Dating within the academy. Dating instructors dating students. I am very against this. I am very, very against this. Why? Because usually the instructor is in a position of power, meaning the instructor is a black belt, is a high belt, is a coach, is respected, and let's just keep it real here. It's usually always men instructors and women students, right? I had an instructor back in my academy a couple years ago. Guy's 50 years old, you know, was creeping on, you know, 20-year-olds. I had to kick him out. I had to kick this instructor out, you know, a guy I've known for a long time. But once I saw that behavior, I was like, no, man, that's not how things are going to work. And of course, you know, if you're a new student to the academy, you don't get to see this right away, right? I saw this over the course of like a year, but, you know, slowly this black belt would try to promote, you know, my students, female students, behind my back, you know, make up justifications for why he would spend exorbitant amount of times with them. He would try to recruit other women into this little cult. And it was just, you know, it's just completely toxic. But that's an extreme example. I don't even like students dating amongst students, to be honest. I think that is dangerous, but I'm not going to stop it. And I'm not going to be able to stop instructors dating instructors, especially if they're on the same level. I can't stop that. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as it's done transparently and not doesn't create problems within the business, I'm cool with that. So yeah, avoiding McDojos, avoiding unethical, those are just some red flags, right? Other red flags, right? These are red flags I think you can see right away when you do your trial. There's no women in the academy. That's a red flag. Especially if it's a big academy and there's no women, we got a problem. Houston, we got a problem, right? Why is there 50 guys on the mat and 0 women, right? I'm sure most academies are predominantly men, but
I mean, yeah, the ratio definitely favors the presence of men in our community for sure, generally speaking.
Yeah. So kind of a side note to that too is creepers, right? Are there creepers in the gym? Creepers in the gym will cast out all women on their first week, So how do you deal with that, right? Like, here's one way to deal with it. Bring a woman. Bring your friend. Bring a female friend to the gym. You and the female friend try the class. Try the class for a week. Is there weird stuff happening? Do they treat her differently than you? Is it unwelcoming, right? Is it unwelcoming to strangers? Women also have different perspective too. So a lot of times women can tell you, okay, this is a weird thing, but you may not have noticed because as a man, you're not going to notice these types of things, right? The next thing was unwelcoming to strangers, right? Is the gym you're joining, is it welcoming to strangers? To not just beginners, you have to be welcoming to beginners. Is there like an elitism in the gym? Is there something in the gym that kind of, is there like a clique in the gym? Is there a cool kids club in the gym? Is there, I want to kind of touch on a side note here, and this is just a personal story, but I think it's important. I had to remove a black belt from my gym yesterday, actually.
Oh, wow.
So, and there's no hard feelings or anything. It's nothing personal. It's just, this guy is a nice guy. He's, I have nothing bad to say about him, but he was starting a clique inside of my gym. He's basically starting a team within a team, right? So my gym has a specific name, and he was kind of running a team inside of my gym. And the team kind of met sometimes in my gym, sometimes it would meet in his garage. And it came to a head when he started promoting people, started promoting his students, my students. I guess you could, now we don't even know, right? Because there's ambiguity.
Yeah, right? It seems like the integrity of of any kind of structure and chain of command protocol was it's compromised.
I own the gym, right? So if I own the gym with my business partner and we hired a black belt to teach, it's not the black belt's job to create a clique or create a team. It's to grow my gym. We pay you, right? That's
uninformed promotions.
Common sense, right? So I think he was just ignorant on that, and he didn't have enough experience to understand that. And the key in that is just having skin in the game, right? So that he didn't have any skin in the game, and he decided to build something inside my academy. So that brings me to the topic of cliques, right? If you're coming into a brand new gym and you notice right away there's all these cliques, that's a red flag. I think it's a big red flag. Okay, at my gym, my home gym in Arcadia, I try my best to not have cliques at all. No elitism. There's no these guys hang out, but these guys don't. The competitors are here, but the regular people, everybody trains with everybody. And, there's always going to be conflict amongst certain people, right? You can't stop that. But there shouldn't be constant animosity with members of the same team. So, that's why you don't want cliques. What do cliques do? It creates elitism. You're cooler than me. How can I join your clique? This stuff, next thing you know, you got splintered off teams and everybody's against each other, right? Cannot have cliques. I know, we may have a differing opinion on this next one, Jim, but renting space. I think I think a gym, a jiu-jitsu academy that rents space, especially to people who have kind of the same martial art going on, you want to avoid academies that do that. So for example, if I have a jiu-jitsu academy and then I rent my mat space to another jiu-jitsu academy on the days that I don't have class or on the times I don't have class, I know many academies that do this. That's dangerous. You don't. This is a conflict of interest. Do not join an academy like that. In my opinion, that's some. Is it really worth it for the academy owner to make a couple $100 a month just to risk that? That's not good. And then we got a couple other ones.
And by the way, for the record, I don't really disagree with you on that.
Okay.
one. Although I've been a beneficiary of one of those scenarios, but
it can be done
as
right.
the guest instructor, it can be done right. But I always felt like my time was borrowed in that scenario, and I saw to it that I got to get out of here because I never wanted that to be the case. So I removed myself as soon as possible. It was a transition period. But all in all, I do agree with you on that. Some people make it work, but because of the previous story that you shared, it's just I never wanted to be looked at as a guest instructor, as an instructor who may even I never want to give anyone a reason to think I'm poaching for anyone. So
and that's exactly what happened in my example. Though that's even a worse example that I gave you because I was paying this guy. I'm paying him, and he's unintentionally, I guess. I'll take his word for it, poaching certain students, and it just wasn't a long-term plan for anybody. It wasn't a long-term plan for me as a gym owner. It wasn't a long-term plan for him as a black belt. What's the end game there? Right? There's no end game. The end game is we're going to come to a head sometime. Might as well do it now. So we had to part ways amicably, but we just had to part ways. It's
so you set up the next step perfectly. You said end game. So let's bring it home. What's this next one you have?
So managing expectations. So, by the way, I don't want to skip this part too. I think most academies should have a healthy kids program. The ones of adequate size, right? They should have a healthy kids program. Why? When you have a healthy kids program, you generally you're family oriented, meaning you avoid things that can naturally progress to toxicity, right? If there's a lot of kids in the gym, you're not going to be playing gangster rap music. You're not going to be, having a disgusting bathroom. You're not going to have, weirdos. It brings an element of safety into the academy, and I think a healthy kids program also tells you that the gym owner understands business, because any jiu-jitsu academy that doesn't have a healthy kids program, I really don't know any that are successful. Maybe ultra famous gyms, but even AOJ, Art of Jiu-Jitsu, they're known for their kids program.
Yeah, they have a killer kids program.
My academy is 50% kids. So anyway, healthy kids program. All right, so bring it home.
That's a great point, by the way. Kids program.
Yeah,
I like that.
Gotta have one. Managing expectations, right? So you've decided to change gyms. You've told your instructor everything is great. You've found your new academy. Seems to be everything's going well. You gotta manage your expectations inside this academy. Okay, I've seen a lot of people change gyms, and they thought their belt was, what it was. Their belt is what it is at their former home academy.
Oh, this is a great point. Great point.
This guy knows me very well, and he wouldn't mind me bringing up the story, I don't think. But one of my students here at where we're recording this podcast, Lionheart Jiu-Jitsu Academy, his name is Mike. He's an older guy. He came here to train with me, I think 3 years ago. Yeah, about 3 years ago. And he's brown belt. And I'm going to be honest, the game that he had and the style that he had was too antiquated. So even though he might have been a brown belt at his academy, when he came to my academy, our style was different. So our style actually killed his style. It was is a modern style. I mean, modern jiu-jitsu beats old school jiu-jitsu. That's just how it is. So,
It's an episode for another podcast.
Right. So he was getting kind of beaten up by some of the lower belts, and he's still a brown belt at this point because we need to. I mean, he's very close to black, but we got to move his game up.
You need to upgrade the firmware.
Yeah, you got to upgrade you got to upgrade the firmware. You got to upgrade your knowledge, and he understands this, and he's on his way. He's done a great job. He's come along very, very well, and that's just one good example, right? Just because you're a high belt at your academy, your old academy, doesn't mean you're going to be a high belt at your new academy. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I go to Brea Jiu-Jitsu once in a while, and my friend Dan runs that academy. He brings in these Cicero Costa guys from Brazil. I mean, there's purple belts that, like, I can't even pass their guard. Like, I'm talking, and I've been a black belt for going on 6 years at this point. So there are always going to be, like, 16-year-old blue belts that can beat adult black belts. Okay, understand that.
Yeah, Kanan Duarte.
Yeah,
kind of comes to mind, right?
I rolled with him when he was a purple belt. He killed me,
yeah.
and I just had him at my academy for a seminar. That's
right.
And this is all within like 3 years,
yeah.
right? So think about that, right? You manage your expectations. When you go to a new gym, don't expect your skill level to match this new gym.
So Ben, let me ask you, what is your take on some stories that you hear about? Let's say a brown belt comes in,
mm-hmm.
and then the instructor may say, well, he's not my brown belt, you're white belt, or
mm-hmm.
you're a purple belt, demote you. What do you feel about that notion, that idea? I don't know. I've never seen it happen. I've heard the rumors and myths.
I've definitely heard of it happening.
Right.
I know it's happened before.
Okay.
But I think there are, it's tough to just like make a general statement of this, because I would say that generally, no, you shouldn't be demoting somebody that came to your academy as a legitimate belt, brown belt, purple belt, whatever, blue belt. You shouldn't be demoting them generally, but there are cases where, like, if say somebody came to my academy and they obviously were not at the level of even like a 2-stripe white belt, and they were like a brown belt, we're gonna have to have a conversation at some point, right? My example with Mike, who's a smaller guy, so he couldn't really like bully his way into beating people on the mats. I never even thought about demoting this guy. He's a brown belt. He earned his brown belt under a legitimate black belt, and sure, his game was a little behind the times, but it's no problem. I never at one point thought I should demote him, but I will wait a pretty long time before promoting him. You know what I'm saying, Jim?
Yeah. You let him marinate at that belt or stripe.
Yeah. So you're gonna, but also I've had students come up to me and say, hey, I don't think I am a purple belt. I want to put on a blue belt. I don't usually let that happen either, because to me, that's disrespecting your previous instructor. And you know what? At that point, I don't have many answers for you. Just man up and get better. Get better. That's it. Don't make excuses. Just get better. I was promoted to purple belt so fast, I didn't even blink. And I didn't think I was ready for purple belt. But guess what? I just dug in, and I just said, you know what? I got to train and get better. And that's kind of how I made it work. Yeah, so that was it, Jim. So managing expectations when you get to that new academy. And it could go the other way around too, right? You might come from a very high level training room, and then you go to this academy, and then you're like, oh, well, my blue belt is actually beating the brown belts here. In that case, it's all good. It's all good. Belts don't really matter anyway. It's just a ranking system for your home gym. So more than likely, you will see a promotion soon. So it's all good. So yeah, let's wrap that up, Jim. Anything to add?
No, all good points to help people who may be in this situation. It happens every year. It's very common that people change academies, people move for whatever reasons. So hopefully this episode kind of sheds a little light on the situation and allows some people out there to navigate through the emotional minefield and the stress that may come with changing academies. So I think the information you gave out today, Coach Ben, is pretty valuable, and thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And just remember, everybody, this is just me and Jim's opinion. Talk to your instructor.
There it is,
Talk
man.
to your instructor.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Jim.